Hello, my name is Tabs and welcome to episode 68 of the Grove podcast. I hope you're all doing well and able to find ways to enjoy your non-Arsenal life. I'm pretty sure I said that last time actually, so which tells a certain tale. Anyway, so with me today on our therapy session, someone who's always a pleasure to have on the pod, someone whose opinions I always appreciate is Jamie. So Jamie, how are you and how pleased are you that you have a new job so you can see more Arsenal like last night?
Oh, I'm beside myself. The idea of being in that gaff more, especially in the winter when I could be tucked up at home for free. Yeah, really delighted.
Very good. Hey, well, look, anyway, congratulations on the new job. So there we go. Look, in this show, we're going to go over, of course, last night's disappointing result against Newcastle in the first leg of the Carabao Cup Semi-Final, and then we'll maybe have a bit more fun looking ahead to our third round FA Cup tie against Man United this Sunday afternoon. So yeah, we've got that to look forward to and so on. So look, as we always do, it's the format and I like a format. So Jamie, to start with you, what was your highlight and low light from last night's game?
I honestly had a real rack of the brain thinking of a highlight in preparation for this, and I really struggle. I mean, maybe there was just one single moment where MLS played his way out of the press from a couple of players. That was just a lovely thing to see, because I like to see it every time he does it. And it was very similar to what he did against Preston, where he caught the press from a couple of players. He actually was on the end of a bad pass a couple of times and had to do it, really wriggled free, and then ended up buying the foul. And that was great, just because it's MLS and it's very hard to be negative about him. As for low lights,
take your pick.
90 minutes covers it. I think for me, the one that really summed it up actually was Kai Havertz and the shoulder attempt on goal. So, Trossard crosses it in, it takes a big loop. Havertz should be on it with his head. And of all the headers that we missed, that felt particularly bad, that it was like a clean air swipe with your foot, wasn't it? But just with his head instead. Yeah. And it just, to be honest, it could even have caught his shoulder half the time in a decent way and got him. But yeah, that probably summed it all up, I think. Because watching it live as well, hadn't quite cottoned on to the fact it was his shoulder and thought it was his head. When you watch the replay up on the screen and you go, good God, is it really? It's one of those days, isn't it? That's how far off the pace we are.
Yeah, to use Martin Tyler's famous commentary, that does sum it all up. So for me, and I didn't realise how bad I think we both had a similar angle to it, and I didn't realise how horrible it was, and that could have got us back in the game. Even I was even thinking, even if you go into the second leg 2-1 down, it's still something, one goal, something. So yeah, that was crucial. Even then, if we got back to 2-2, who knows? But yes, it was a terrible miss. Yeah, look, for me, I did have MLS, and I like what you said. He was a bit heart attack inducing at times, because when I think the one he's talking about, it was on the edge of our box. He had two players on him, and boy, had it gone the other way, I'm not sure we'd be singing his praises. And he did that a couple of times in a less precarious positions. But for me, the only highlight I can take from this is that the result means it's more likely to go to 0 away points for the away leg, and I might get a ticket to go, which I'm not too sure spending X amount of pounds on a ticket and travel and going to Newcastle is a highlight or not. So we'll see. So that might be my sort of only straw that I can clutch at. In terms of low light, yeah, we'll talk about stuff in a later game. Is this was getting back to the train station, getting back to Arsenal Station. I think they let the Newcastle fans out pretty quickly, actually, and I don't know why they don't do like we do in Europe and just keep them head penned in for hours. And so basically they got to the station at the same time me and my son did. And look, I don't mind them. They won, well played. I'm not going to begrudge them, and I don't have any animosity to them. I just don't need to hear it. I just do not need to hear them. And they were in full voice and all the rest of it. Funny enough, my son found it actually quite quite amusing. He quite liked it. I mean, I guess it's all a bit novel to him. I just did not fancy getting onto a packed tube with all those Geordies singing and dancing and stuff. So luckily they were ahead of us and got on the train ahead. So my carriage was more somber. So that was more the mood I was more the mood I was appreciating. So that was a bit of a low light. You just again, no animos, but you just don't need it in your face either. So
no, and especially not when when you've gone to the game after work or whatever, and when they've come down from Newcastle. Fair play to them, they have spent about 5 or 6 hours preparing themselves, haven't they? So
yes, they were in a good mood.
Different vibe going on between everybody in that environment midweek, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Okay, so look. So the lineup, Raya in goal, then we had Timber, Gabriel, Saliba, MLS, then in midfield, Rice, Odegaard, Partey, and then Nelly, Havertz, Trossard. So actually, a phrase I like to say, good on paper, shit on grass. So well, maybe that's a bit harsh, but I think beforehand, it's looked like a strong lineup. Now, Timber's back, MLS for Calafiori, we're happy with that, Partey back in the middle, and I think I put in the group to urge a bit of caution, just or err on the side of caution, because Havertz, how fit is he? Odegaard, Nelly, how fit were they really? So yeah, they're starting, but considering Havertz hadn't trained or done anything, he lost half his body weight, which is practically zero anyway, down the toilet. So I didn't know what to expect, but on paper it looked strong. What were your thoughts when you saw that lineup, and how did you think it would, or what did you think it would mean for the game?
Reasonably similar. I did think it was an interesting. The most interesting shout for me was Havertz up against those two centre halves. The fact, as you say, he's a bit rusty more than likely as well coming into it. Certainly would have been lacking a bit of sharpness, and he's. Havertz, I think, is one of those players where his physicality obviously is a tool that we don't really have around the attacking four. In abundance, and you're putting him up against two of the best physical centre halves in the Premier League, and yeah, I did wonder a bit, because the thing that you see with Dan Burn as a weakness, especially, but also with Sven Botman as well, is that you can get in and around him with the likes of a Gabriel Jesus, in my opinion, or even if you put Trossard in that position now. I mean, aside from the fact Trossard was absolutely appalling, if he'd have been at centre forward, I don't know, maybe it changes. I just, for whatever reason, where I've seen them struggle has generally been when they've had somebody a bit flighty, a bit nimble around them, more so than necessarily having the likes of Kai Havertz trying to take them on physically or competing with them in the air all day. So it was an interesting choice, I thought.
Yeah.
But that was the only real thing that stood out to me. Otherwise, it just looked like we picked the strongest 11 available to us on the day.
Yeah, no, and I think we had to go strong. This was, of the two cup games, this was, I think, the priority, the closest chance to getting to Wembley, and so on. And maybe we should name at the moment Trossard Drossard, because at the moment that's how he seems to be playing. And maybe I would like to have seen, maybe Jesus start off the right and have maybe use his trickiness and stuff off the right. And I was surprised he didn't play, because he seems like a bit of a momentum guy. Just keep him going. Trossard, just as a starting player, he's never been convincing starting. Even when he's had his good patches, he's always been more, and I say impact player, but I mean, better off the bench. I think very rarely he when he starts, he provides end product. So yeah, I would have, and again, to counteract that, the Jesus thing is a bit more tricky against the big defenders. He can, as we saw in the second half, switch with Havertz a bit and go back and forth. So that was maybe that was where I'd like to have seen it. And yeah, MLS over Calafiori, I'm happy for them to job share at the moment. So we come to the game as a whole, and we like a statistic, but the statistics here are lying to us to a certain extent. I would suggest. We had 70% possession to 30. That was always going to happen. We had 3.09 xG to their 1.22, 23 shots, 3 on target, 6 big chances, 500 passes to Newcastle's 189. Obviously, Newcastle committed twice as many fouls as us, and we had 11 corners. But the biggest statistic was 2-0, and that's the only one that mattered. And I think this is a story where we can look at, okay, we had 23 shots, but really how many of those, apart from Martinelli's, and if you conclude the couple of the headers, well, it says 6 big chances. I would say three big chances. But there's various topics I want to get through. But what were your overall thoughts, on the game? How did you feel about how it went, how we approached it, what happened? Yeah, just all your general thoughts on the game and the result as a whole.
I can't complain about the result. Newcastle were the deserved winners, I think. You look at it and it feels almost a little bit like the we've had against City at times, where the game plan at their end nullified most of what we do particularly well. They gave up a few chances, but as good as and we should have scored a couple of them, 100%. I never at any point felt like we were likely to pull back the game after 1-0. I think from that moment onwards, it just felt like it was going to be downhill, to be completely frank. I think the main thing that stands out for me is just that everybody just looked really tired again, and we looked really desperately short of ideas in the second half. I don't have a huge amount of complaints about the first half, but the second half, really, we just felt so flaccid. There was no fight, and that's the most disappointing bit for me. It felt like there was a real lack of grit and fight and willingness to be able to push on and somebody to do something inventive. And that was the real concern for me. Yeah, no,
and I think you've raised. There's a few topics. There's 3 or 4 topics I want to cover that you've touched on. I mean, for me, I think you said, we didn't actually play that badly in the first half. We created enough to win, but ultimately we're not good enough. We had periods of pressure, and especially between like the 10th and the 35th minute until Newcastle scored, where there was pressure and it felt like a goal was coming. You thought it was eventually like against Ipswich, the pressure was going to tell, or against Man United, the pressure was going to tell. But we created the chances, we just didn't put them away. And it's a story of 2 teams, one who could finish their chances and one that couldn't. And then it played perfectly into Newcastle's hands. If you were to say, how do you want this game to go? There we go. We go 1-0 up, we play on the transition, we then sit back with the discipline of a 4-5-1 or a 5-5-0, knowing that Arsenal are anemic at the moment, lack creativity. This was perfect for them, and it suited them down to the ground. And I also feel, in a way, this result and even the Brighton result has sort of been coming. Like I think I said in the last pod, we were undefeated in 13, until last night. But underlying, if we're true to ourselves and we're honest, it's not always been convincing, and we have been inconsistent. So there have been highs and lows. 0-0 against Everton, but then 5-1 against Palace, but then only 1-0 against Ipswich, but then 3-1 against Brentford, and then 1-1 against Brighton. It reminds me a bit. It's not as bad as that Emery period, where we went before winter and he won a load of games, and the underlying metrics there were terrible. We were just getting away with it. This breeds something else. You're right. I think it's injuries, illness, everything that's got on prior to that, but then also something that we're missing, and so that leads me on to the first topic is like we lack creativity, real threat, no spark. I mean, why do you think that is? Who are Newcastle scared of?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely the case. I think there's a couple of bits there, isn't there? We do have too much reliance on a couple of big stars. I don't think that there's necessarily something wrong with having a lot of reliance on 2 really big players, because if you look at the majority of top teams in the Premier League or even across the world, most of them have a reliance on 2 really big important players. That's the case for, I would say, as much the case for City and Liverpool as it is for us, to be completely frank. But certainly I think some of those kind of role players and the players around them, I think you probably need at least one more of those to be upgraded from role player to top star, whether that's striker, left wing, whatever. We know the positions where we're most likely to be able to upgrade. But it does feel like we're definitely one short, and somebody who is inventive and able to do things off their own back or grab a game by the scruff of the neck. It doesn't necessarily have to be your classic creativity in the Martin Odegaard style of, who's got the ability to play a lovely ball or something like that. Jorginho's got that ability, and to be fair, so does Trossard at times. There's a bunch of invention at times, but somebody who's able to really grab a game by the scruff of the neck is the thing for me. So it's almost the urgency more so than it is the creativity from my perspective. And funnily enough, I think we really, really miss, oddly, as a creative outlet, our right back as well. I just kept feeling throughout the game that right-hand side, it's not just Saka being missing, it's also Ben White and what he does for Odegaard as well, and his ability to go... It's the intelligence of when he times his runs, the way that he does that seamless glide. I'm just imagining him right now, the stallion that is Ben White, and wishing him back into the team. But I do think when we have Timber out there, and certainly when we have Partey out there, you just don't get that level of support for those players on the right hand side. And similarly at left back, as much as I enjoyed MLS at times, he's not really doing a huge amount for us going forward. Calafiori hasn't really shown that much going forward yet. We know he's a good progressive passer and a good ball carrier, but we haven't seen a huge amount, probably just because he hasn't had those kind of consistent runs and the ability to slot to nail down his place. But I think that's a big deal as well, not just about who's in the attacking four, but I really miss a bit of invention and creativity coming up from those fullback positions, because we haven't had it all year as far as I'm concerned.
No, I agree, and I think we'll touch on our structure in a moment. In terms of that spark, that creativity, and I think this is where Saka is the big miss. He is our X factor. You give him the ball, he can take on a play, he comes inside, goes outside, he can shoot, he can cross. He's someone that's Newcastle would be scared of. If they're in the training ground preparing for the game, no Saka. Right, no dramas. Let's just be disciplined, and we can hold them back. So, and in terms of, you're right, single points of failure. You're right. Any team, you take their best two players out for certain periods of time, that they will fail, and you can't have. It's very hard to have backups for world class players now. They're not playing world class at the moment and stuff like that, but they are world class players. And with Odegaard, he's obviously off form at the moment. He came back, had the sort of new player bounce coming back from injury, and then he seems to have tailed off. Ties in with the birth of a child, but I'm sure there's other elements there. And the other thing he does when we're like this, I think he tries too hard. He does so much for the team, so much off the ball, so much running, but then when the rest of the team, like Trossard is off, like other players are off, there's no one to pick up the slack. So he's then not in the best position to be as creative, his creative self. And then there's also the mental space when things are not so great. It's just harder. And there was one thing interesting. I don't know if I'm trying to see things here, but I actually noted this before. So I watched the warm up and I saw him particularly. And he looked like he was trying to get energy into his legs, into his body, sort of trying to force himself to be ready. Not like just normal, just warm up. It just feels like, I put it akin to, I've played football hungover before. Yeah. So now, I'm not saying Odegaard was hungover, but however, it just reminded me of at times where, I'd have it's like having a shower to wake yourself up. You run around a bit just to get the blood pumping and stuff like that, just to, you're not feeling great. So you need to do something to get the blood. And I just noted it and I wrote it down before the game. So I'm not saying this retrospectively. I did notice this, and he was trying to force his body to be ready for the game. So there's obviously something not there. So when you add everything in, no Saka, players off form, he's off form, then the relationships aren't there. You touched on the Ben White thing. So when you've got Ben White, Saka, Odegaard, bang, 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 you know what they're doing now. We haven't built up that relationship. Trossard is not the same. So I think there, now this leads to sort of the second point. Are we too rigid, too structured, too slow, too predictable, too scared to try and do something? We so don't want to lose the ball. We so want to be in control of that football that we forget the primary objective. Do you feel the same?
Yes and no. I think my biggest issue with rigidity comes down to personnel as well, because again we've got such defined role players that actually they're not necessarily as versatile as they might have been at some stage. I think it feels like the players really just want to go out and play that very particular role that's part of the normal setup that we've been playing for a very long time now. We don't really make any kind of changes. We're quite, as I say, quite rigid, but it's really free flowing in the right environment. Those same patterns of play, that same setup, those same roles, up against it in the right conditions, looks like it's, you know, prime time bloody Barcelona at times. You know, it looks fantastic. It's I don't think the system necessarily is too rigid. I think the way that we're anchored to that system and a lack of a plan B is where the rigidity is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the tactical setup itself, fine with it. Don't think it necessarily has to change as a plan A, but it always feels like there needs to be more of a plan B.
Yeah. For me, it's when we're playing well, it's pass and move, quick. You know, they're firing into their feet, they're controlling it. And the one time we got excited yesterday was a bang, 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 nearly over the top. You know, and we had a chance there, and that was nice. It was first time passing. It was quick. I find that, I guess, I'm maybe too rigid in terms of how we play. Yeah. You know, it's not. Yeah, you're right. I don't think it's the structures, because when we got the players fit, we're right. We are so good. We are very good. But at the moment, it's too slow, too predictable. Teams can just by the time we've got the ball and played it around between Saliba, Raya, Gabriel, back, teams are behind the ball. Bang, right, okay. Oh shit! Now we need to get past 11 men, sort of thing, and especially when we're lacking that threat. So that's fine. We can do that. Here's Saka. Oh, 2 men go out. Great. Someone's freer and all the rest of it. So I just feel that's where I think we're a bit. It's rigid in what we do. It's the pace at which we do stuff. It's that controlling thing. It's that bit of Arteta risk averseness and so on. And yeah, it can bite you in the bum. And if you don't have the right players at the right time, it makes them what's happening harder to do. And we're playing in front of everyone. We're always playing in front of teams. You know, it's very rarely we're playing behind them, getting in behind. You know, and the one time we do, we almost score it. And it's just, yeah, it's very interesting. I've heard on the discourse, people at the ground, the people online, podcasts. Are we boring at the moment? You know, are you entertained by what you're watching? No.
I mean, it's interesting, general. One of the things that I was really thinking about yesterday, and the last time that I was in the gaff as well for the European game against PSV, is that we seem not be anywhere near as fluid in the particular moments as well, where we're trying to invite the press and then break the press. We had a couple of times of that yesterday against Newcastle in the first half, where they were coming up and they were pressing us. They weren't committing huge numbers, but they were pressing us, and there was the ability for us to be able to do that lovely kind of swooping movement that we used to do, where it would move across the back line but at a pace. And then those fullbacks would be ready to go and make a progressive pass or carry the ball. And it feels like in general this season we're still playing to do that. We're still playing to invite the press, but when the press turns up, we end up, not really losing the ball or creating problems for ourselves necessarily, as much as what we end up doing is just passing around ad infinitum and not getting the progressive part. We're not seeing that moment where we actually progress the ball up the pitch. We're just very slowly moving it to a position where it's at the feet of the number 6 at some stage, and it then kind of slowly ambles up the pitch from there. We've really lost that, as far as I can see. It's the main part of our attacking patterns that it feels like has been missing, has been that ability to get from back to front with pace. And that's the thing that I kept feeling last night against Newcastle in that first half, was like, where is that coming from? Why has that stopped being the case? Why are we less comfortable in doing that and moving the ball very, very quickly? Because I think if you're going to move the ball around the back, which everybody does now, the degree of success that you do it with is generally based on how quickly you're able to do that and how you transition up the pitch. Yeah. And we're still inviting the press. We're still relatively comfortable in playing out, in not losing the ball. It's just not getting anywhere.
The next phase of play, is not happening. That's fine. Boring. And the next phase of play isn't there. And again, I think we can put it down to multiple things. There are mitigating factors. but I don't even see us trying. That's the thing. You're not even trying. But then again, that comes back to the fear factor, that in terms of how we want to play, and all about control. But control only gets you so far. And there's a quote here, or Troy Deeney, I think he was on one of the comms somewhere, and I actually quite like him as a pundit. He seems to be. I didn't like him as a player, but as a pundit, I think he seems to be very, very fair. And he said, look, I think this sums it up. It's the same stuff. They are doing the same patterns of play. They're going down one side. They're trying to play inside. They're trying to get a third man runner. And all Newcastle did was go 5 and 5 in 2 lines and said, go on, then break us down. And they couldn't do it. Yes, they had a couple of chances, but the one from Martinelli came from a turnover. It wasn't that they worked it, and the rest were from second bits on corners. It's not exactly like they're breaking teams down. And I think that's right, and it sums it up. Again, it sums it up, and it then goes on to say the one problem we threw at Arsenal's door for the last 2 years is they need a striker, and every year Mikel chooses not to do that. Goes with Javi Jesus or Kai Havertz. They think they can do it, but in the crunch time, those guys go missing, and that's what happened today. Now, whether it's a striker we need, whether it's another creative midfielder, whether it's a winger, that can be debated. So I think it's a bit simplistic to say they need a striker, but it does lead on to my next point, is that like last year, and I'm talking season and calendar year, we scored a record number of goals. So what has gone wrong? What's happened since then? Like, the thing that's interesting, and I think we said at the end of last year, is that yes, we scored a record number of goals, but we drew blanks at 4 or 5 critical times, which basically, had impacted our season and cost us last season. So Villa home and away, Bayern away, West Ham at home. So we knew we needed to build on this, and Arteta even said it, but we didn't address this. In the summer, we didn't address this, and we most probably won't address it until this summer. Some summer coming. I mean, in terms of what we're lacking, I think what is it? Is it all 3? Is it And then look, if we go to what do we need to change in the transfer market, or what is it that you think we should be doing, and even can do?
So I think if I were to put myself in the shoes of Arteta and vacancy, then I would. What I'd really love to know, the penny for the thoughts that I'd love to know from Arteta in particular, is how the perception of our current playing staff has changed over this season, because I think. I've kind of talked quite a lot before about have sympathy for us trying to sign players in at this time now. This is not where we were 4 or 5 years ago, where you could go and buy a Gabriel and see how it pans out, and that was no guarantee of success. You could buy players at that time convinced that their ceiling is somewhat high, and knowing that their floor is actually reasonably low, because we were quite crap, if you remember. And now the difficult years, we actually have lots of evidence that these players have got quite a high floor. And the perception would be that some of them have got really high ceilings, and so the guys that you need to bring in need to at least match that floor, and ideally need to be pushing those ceilings up, right? And so the question for me is, has Mikel Arteta's perception of some of those floors dropped somewhat, and will that make it easier for us to recruit? Because you go back to the summer and who we were linked with, and I think Nico Williams was one of the few attacking talents that got anyone excited that we were linked with. And there's no doubt he would have been probably a raiser to both those. There's other things about what season he's had and all sort. Leaving that aside, he was an exciting attacking talent who had a fantastic summer tournament. Do you actually definitely need the fantastic attacking talent who had a great summer tournament, or do you need somebody maybe that's playing in the Premier League already, that's playing in Serie A or La Liga for a team that's in mid-table? Is it that we thought that we needed that level of talent that's very hard to obtain, where there's a whole bunch of teams that are after them, because we felt that our perception of what the floor of a Gabriel Martinelli and a Leandro Trossard was massively inflated? And I'll be honest, I've sort of felt it might have been that for about the last 18 to 24 months anyway. But I wonder if he might be more convinced on these things. And I think that will really determine it, is how do we feel about the current playing staff, and are we willing to accept that some of them are ones that we should be moving on from without totally being convinced that we're necessarily getting a ceiling raiser. We might actually want a floor raiser. And I I didn't feel a year ago, and probably not in the summer, that we needed a floor raiser at left wing. I feel we do now. I felt we needed a ceiling raiser. I wanted the top of the class guy, and if we can't get him, what's the point? These guys are the next class below. Actually, they might not be the next class below. They might be the class below that as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you're, that's the thing in terms of recruitment, when you're at the top, you know, it's easy to go from shit to good and good to very good, but going from very good to being the best, that is just so hard, and the players available, the players that make you do it is hard to get it. I think we look at too much at past performance as opposed to future performance. So someone like Trossard's a perfect example. Look, it's all easy in hindsight. Trossard it was fantastic for us last season, but again, you've got to anticipate. Okay, is that the norm, or is that sustainable, or is that him peaking, exceeding his XG and whatever? They need to be maybe better judges of that sort of thing. So again, he's a great squad player, but where can we upgrade? I think we're all giving Martinelli the benefit of the doubt. Now we can see, is this now his true level? And I think we need to be better at assessing what players' real levels are versus hot streaks. And then how do we plug the gaps? How do we get more of those people that will deliver? Again, in essence, if we got more Trossards and 1 or 2 years of people that did what Trossard did for the last couple of years, that would be great. But then you move on, and then you move on as you supplement the top stars with 1 or 2 of those stars. And I think that's where we can mix it up. But I don't think. Look, I'm sure they tried to address it. You said we tried to get Sesko, didn't work out. We are very strict and rigid, and I don't mind this in terms of the type of people we get in and how they fit with Arsenal and stuff like that. So it's you like someone like an Osimhen. Do you want to bring in that potentially disruptive style character who could maybe be another Aubameyang into this group? There's no guarantees. If we had him surely on the pitch, he would have done something. But we think of things holistically at this club. It's not, maybe football fans are maybe a bit more binary. Score goals good, don't score goals bad. But they've got to think of, it's a corporation, it's a company, it's culture, it's everything around that. And then the other thing is PSR. And there's the financial aspect of it. Look at the news that came out from Ornstein yesterday. Man United are happy to sell Garnacho and Mainu. Now, if you're a team looking to develop, you keep hold of them and you get rid of the other shit, but they can't afford to. They can't pay off the others, and so they're getting rid of their. They will be good Premiership players.
I'll take Diallo off them. I'll tell you that now. I don't want the other two, but I'll take Diallo.
Well, Garnacho, I think he can be made into a decent player. I don't
think I could look at him, to be honest.
Okay, well then that's something else. And Mainu, put him in the right team with the right surrounding. Right, these are players that are not being given due care and attention. So I think there's talent there in the wrong environment, and they're made to suffer. And this is the way we've treated the likes of MLS and the likes of Waneri, I think, really well. It's because we've exposed them at the right time and the right way. But even now, look at Waneri's injury. There may be an element there that technically he's ready, physically he may not be ready. Whereas MLS is physically and technically ready. So we're not there behind the scenes. But it's always hard to know about things. So know about transfers, or how do we go about it, the bigger picture, and maybe 10 years ago we wouldn't give two shits. We just want a player in, we don't care about anything else. But now I think we see the club as a whole, and so I can be more sympathetic to some of the decisions that the team make. So then how do we change things? Because there's no room to breathe. We've got games every 3 days. Even I'm getting to the point of, I love football and I love going to the Arsenal and all the rest of it, but and look, if we're winning or we're top of the league, give me football 24/7. yeah. So I'm getting fatigued, about this.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've been saying for a long time, there's far too much bloody football now. I love the sport. I love going, but I mean, the Champions League adding 2 games on is absolutely bloody ridiculous. Never mind the fact that some teams will have further games on top of that.
And then also we get to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, so it comes back to that. Yeah. Should we have just got knocked out in the third round and be gone with it? And then we're not dealing. Last January we had 3 games. This January we've got was it 9? 10? I don't know. And there's no Dubai this year. There's no winter break. No Dubai, and that's nuts. Off the back of a tournament summer. Yeah. Then there's no break during and so this is why English clubs will be fucked in the Champions League, because Germany, Italy, Spain, I'm assuming they'll have their breaks and they'll have their feet up, wherever, and we just shoot ourselves in the foot. No, more football. Was it that I don't know if anyone knows the who did Michelin Web? Yeah, Michelin. Football all the time, every day, football. Yeah, and it just feels like, oh fuck, yeah, they got that spot on. Yeah, Michelin Web, that's the one. Michelin Web. It was like, oh my, yeah, you say, yeah, no, that was like 20 years ago, I think, or even longer. And it's just like, so we're in a funk. We got no momentum. Any ideas that we can change it? Please send them to mikel@arsenal.com.
I mean, I will say, I think in the long run, I was quite intrigued by Chelsea and their sort of their European squad and their Premier League squad. And I'm not sure you want to be doing that with the Champions League. They won't be doing that with the Champions League once they're in that. But I'm quite intrigued as to whether you kind of take that approach for the domestic cups. We used to do it for the League Cup. We had years where we used to have the Wenger's kids out in the League Cup, and we did get the opportunity to bleed a few of them in to the couple of rounds. But I'm sort of with you a little bit that I would. There's a little part of me goes, you know what, slam the kids in every round. Just keep them going all the time. And I suppose the problem is that the bridge, if you like, between, it used to be that we could stick the kids out against top championship clubs and lower end Premier League clubs and go and beat them. I still remember the Carlos Vela against Sheffield United game in particular was just phenomenal. And those couple of years you could do that. I think the gap is just so great now. You need to be Chelsea. You need to have gone and spent £300 million on your under-21 squad. And so I'm intrigued by the prospect of it. I don't think, unfortunately, it's practical to do. But I do wonder long term in the Premier League in general whether we are going to have to probably drop a couple of teams out. I think that might happen when they next go to negotiate TV money. They can't do it until that comes up, because they can't drop the number of games that are being televised. But I think it's got to happen, because unfortunately it's just squeezed it to such a degree that you look at what's happening with City at the moment, how knackered they are, and the difficulty the Guardiola's have managing that squad and its involvement in lots of competitions for years now. I don't think that those sort of relentless machines of squads are really going to exist in the same way. I think we need to go back to more rotation. And not just have these supreme athletes who are expected to play every game. Yeah,
and I think Arteta's alluded to that. He said, in general, we need bigger squads. If we want to play this much football, we need bigger squads. And sacrifice some competitions. I don't know. But it does feel like there's just too much. Again, we're winning, we don't care. But I think the type of season we're having now would be more like the norm. You're going to see a lot more, I would say, injuries and people suffering for it. And I think I said in the last pod, we are doing incredibly well considering. Look what's happened to City, Man United and Spurs. And we're not complaining about injury. Every team have injuries. Yes, we're great. It happens to be our best players. Why couldn't it happen to other players? And even then they've had it. And it's the compound stuff. But we've still managed to stay in contention. And this is the thing that's last night's game. And, we're 2-0 down. And it's a bit like our league season. We're not quite out yet. We're still a chance, but boy, it's minute. And so can someone just please just cut the cord, just stick the knife in, turn it, and we can all fuck off home. It's just it just feels like we're just hanging on by the barest of threads. And but I said last year we had Dubai by, and this game, last night's game, is very similar to the Liverpool game. We created chances in the FA Cup. We created chances. Liverpool just took theirs. We didn't take ours. So maybe this is our nadir. But last year we had Dubai, refresh, regroup, bit of suntan, bit of fitness, bit of bonding. Away we go. That I can't see happening this year. It's just and the rest of the season is going to be a bit like this. We're just going to be trying to make do and mend, and we'll have some good moments and we'll have some crap moments, and we've just got to make sure that I think the primary objective, if you boil it down to, is just top 4. The rest is a bonus. Now I hate to say that. Yes, all the rest of it would be nice. We cannot fall out of that top 4.
I mean, I don't think we're going to have a problem anyway. It's going to go to 5 teams. It takes. Okay. So with the way the coefficient is at the moment, unless pretty much all English teams start to lose all of their European games across all European competitions, we're getting 5-team Champions League next season. Okay, which is going to be hilarious watching either one of Nottingham Forest or I think it's probably, I honestly think Forest might.
Get Bournemouth in there. Love it.
Genuinely, either Forest or Bournemouth have got a really good shot of being in the Champions League next year.
Oh my God, that'd be incredible.
Because it is going to go down to 5. So at least I'm quietly confident that even in the worst case scenario, I think we'll finish 5th.
Okay, well, good.
But you're right, that would be a dagger in the heart, because you've got to maintain that income now, because the big deal that we've got now is we've got a bunch of salaries that are based on us having that Champions League income. That is now what we're paying Bukayo Saka. That is now what we're paying Martin Odegaard. They're not on the cheap anymore. And as a result, if you do drop out of Champions League, yes, you're still making money as a club, but you've got so much walking out the door that way that you really limit what you can spend in transfer fees. And we've been there before, haven't we? Yeah. We've had a Champions League pay a bunch of salaries, and we've had a transfer budget when we dropped out of the Champions League that was, which was not fantastic. And then we've had, when we suffered the issue, trying to get rid of those bloody players afterwards as well.
And we want to keep the players that we have. So it's Champions League or bust. So I think that's objective number 1. And then maybe we'll touch on that with the Man United game. So look, in terms of yesterday's game, where we won and where we lost it. As I said, I think in the first half, and I'll get you to explain a comment in a minute. I think it was fairly evenly matched for the first 15 minutes. Newcastle didn't sit back. They put us under pressure. I think they pressed quite highly. One thing that I did really notice is that when we had the ball at Raya's feet, they had a man on Partey and a man on Rice. So that outlet, because we like to do that one, Timber and Big G go out wide. Partey's in the middle to receive the ball, turn, move, blah blah blah, or whatever, and so that we found that hard, and they pressed well, but we eventually, 10th minute, Martinelli had a shot, and then Saliba had a shot, and it could have easily have broken to Havertz. So Newcastle were throwing bodies in the way. Timber on the 13th minute he missed that header. It was a great corner, free header. He mistimed his jump. He was on the way down, so he was underneath it, so went over rather than being underneath it. And then, but again, Newcastle had their chances. I think the 4th minute, Joel Linton. In the 16th minute, Isaac was not fearful of Saliba. He was one of the players that we've seen that actually gave our defenders trouble. And Isaac was the best player on the pitch yesterday by far. And then Tonali's shot over, and then we had that breakaway with Nelly, hits the post. I think he did everything right. 1 inch to the left, and it hits off the inside of the post and goes in. So, I think we talked about it at half time when I met you. Yeah, maybe he could have gone a bit lower with it. I don't think across the keeper was right. So yeah, just unlucky. Odegaard then has a shot at 31, blocked, goes over for a corner, and then 38th, Isaac scores just a free kick pumped into the box. We don't win the first ball, we don't win the second ball, and we don't win the third ball. Isaac's there, bang, 1-0, and that's so uncharacteristic of us. I mean, what you would have had a good view of that goal as well. How did you see it?
It really took me by surprise, because with where the free kick was being taken from, I didn't think much of it. And it's one of those where it just really catches you out. You watch him, but you're not watching. And you just suddenly realise, and it in general felt like one of those goals that the reaction is somewhat muted, because everybody's just a bit like, what?
Yeah.
Was that? Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, it was poor defensively, but it is one of those where I'm kind of minded that this is not something we've seen before. This is not some endemic thing. You just go, that happens sometimes. Crap happens. Jacob Murphy gets his touch on it that looks. I mean, the actual
he miscontrolled it
completely. He's trying to put it down for himself. He's not looking at Isaac. He's got no idea Isaac's there, or at least that he's there to be an outlet for. And it just happened that this touch that he's trying to take for himself, that he takes a heavy touch on, ends up going through to Isaac in the perfect position. And it is what it is. I don't feel massively hurt by it. It's an annoying goal to concede. You want to win the first or the second ball, but they got a touch of luck with it. And this happens sometimes. It's a game of football.
Yeah. And you're right. It was a very passive response in the crowd. It wasn't like, right, come on, let's go. It's not like in the past when like Saliba scored an own goal or all right, let's get back into this. It was sort of like, we're not surprised. Yeah, it was a bit of a how did that goal happen? But also, we're not surprised it's happened. I think it's just the mood that's around the stadium at the moment. And then the most frustrating, I think, part for me of the half was on the 44th minute when we spent. I'm surprised we didn't get booked for the amount of time we took to take this free kick. It was not. We had a free kick on the edge of the box, and we just took an age. And as I said, if that's a throw in or a corner, we're getting booked. And then we spent all that time to hit. We aimed at the smallest part of the wall, and we still hit the wall. And it was sort of like, if you're going to do that, just. I don't know. So, and we haven't scored a free kick domestically. I think we scored against PSG, but that was a lucky free kick rather than anything specific. Since Odegaard against Burnley back in the 1900s, I think that was the last time. So
it's odd though, isn't it? I mean, we're given even throughout yesterday the set piece delivery from corners and from free kicks indirect were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Declan Rice's balls in were fantastic. How has somebody not got decent placement on free kicks at this stage? I don't know.
And we even moved the ball back because I thought the foul was on the edge of the box. It had loads of room. So that was terrible. So anyway, before we move on to the second half, apparently you said in the pub after the game, we won the first half. Explain yourself, because I'm sure we were losing 1-0. So please.
Yeah, so this did cause my dear friend Owen to absolutely lose his proverbials with me, as he ranted about how we were 1-0 down. We most certainly did not win it. So, to be honest, it was sort of a response to hyperbole. So there was a bit of hyperbole flying about after the game. And I think, as you know, I don't respond very well to hyperbole generally. And so I sort of pitched up and fought fire with fire somewhat and said, well, I think if we look at the stats in the morning, we'll have won that first half, basically. To which, I didn't quite expect it to go down quite as badly as it did. So that was the context, and I fundamentally I think I might have been right, but I was absolutely being tongue in cheek that I don't believe that you win the first half morally.
Well, okay. According to we had 58% possession, 1.93 xG to their 0.88, 14 shots to their 5, 3 on target, 4 big chances. So yes. Statistically, we were the better team, but as always with football, and I do love a statistic, and I will lean on them. However, I think we definitely lost that first half. So sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one.
The overriding point, I think, is we went in at half time, I think, in a position where if we'd have been 2-1 up, I think you absolutely feel that we deserved it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those weird halves where I don't think we deserve to be 2-1 up, but you would have felt that way if we were 2-1 up.
No,
you know what I mean? That's the sort of position.
No, I know. I'm just being facetious. No, I totally agree. As I said, we didn't play that badly. We had chances. We didn't take it. They took theirs, and that's it. And then, as I said, second half, Newcastle just had to do the very simple task: be disciplined. 2 banks of 5 or 4-5-1, hold the line, be disciplined, play in the counter, and they couldn't believe their luck when they got a goal on the 51st minute. Again, not great defending. Isaac was involved a couple of times, came short to get the ball out wide, went in the box. He somehow got between Rice and Partey, and we sort of stood off him, and he shot. Ray saved it. Again, shit happens. Could have gone anywhere.
Yeah,
Timber on his heels, Gordon there to put it away, and that was game over. We were never coming. The best I was hoping for was maybe a 2-2. You get one back, a bit of a rabble-rousing. The way we were going, getting 3. So no chance. And then we had the Havertz shoulder. We brought on some subs. In the 59th minute, so Partey and Trossard off, Jesus and Jorginho on. How did you feel about Havertz going out wide right and Jesus in the middle? Because I wasn't a fan.
So at that stage in the game, I sort of thought it was worth a go. I actually quite enjoyed Havertz trying to run with the ball a little bit and go at players, and he does have that in him. He will try and go past his man, take him on, and then deliver a ball. I think at that stage in the game, it was a bit odd because you would expect both of them to go up top, to be honest, because we've got no issues holding on to the ball and we should be able to just continue to whip balls in. I was kind of amazed that Sterling didn't come on. Wondered if he was only on the bench at 70% or something. Because
he had to be. I think he was there making numbers. I don't think he was there.
I think it must have been, yeah. Because otherwise, I would have expected, as well at that point in that game, where to be completely honest, it's largely stale possession that we've got, and we're trying to get some balls into the box. He can still whip in balls perfect. I mean, it was never a massive strong point of his, but it's a body that's played top class football and can be expected to cross the ball half decent. At least a couple of times out of 5 or 6. So it was a bit odd. I didn't really fully understand some of them. But I did on the other hand think, Havertz was quite positive in trying to run at his man.
Yeah. And
there's very few players we have that try and run at their men from standing starts. It is Saka, it is Havertz will happily do it, and it's Odegaard, and that's about it. No one else, well, Trossard as well. Just Trossard, unfortunately, at the moment is not doing it. That's a different point entirely. Yeah. Martinelli doesn't do it. Never has. He likes to, if he's not coming onto the ball, he generally doesn't take on a man particularly. Yeah. So yeah, it was a bit odd. I thought the strangest thing for me was that Sterling decision, and probably as well the big retrospective that I got for the subs was it just me, or did you feel that Jorginho probably could have done with starting that game as well? Because exactly to your point, and then putting men on Partey and Rice in the centre of midfield, Jorginho's the one that can actually drop all the way back and has the range of passing to be able to dink it well out of the way. And I thought when he came on, he actually showed that as well. He showed the bit. I know it was a different game state and they were backing off a lot more. There was less press going on. But I personally think he would have been a better option. I thought that showed off the bench.
I think against Brighton, his age and his lack of strength on the ball may be told. So Brighton are a very physical team. Newcastle a very physical team. I think that would have been the reason. I think the reason why. And I think coming on, everything was in front of him. Yeah. And everything was in front of him in the final third, and he wasn't going to be pressured on the edge of our box with his back to with his face facing the goal. So no, I don't think that was going to be on. I just wanted to see Jesus on the right. And look, if we're crossing the ball and trying to do headers, yes, Jesus got a leap on him, but okay, Havertz didn't exactly too great in the 58th minute. I know. I'd rather have Jesus out wide, jinking in and out, or even just alternate. But it just seemed a bit of an odd thing to me.
It's just a point of difference, though, isn't it? Because you go from we'd had all those minutes for Havertz up top, so I think trying something different. Maybe. And to be honest, a lot of people have said about Jesus on the right. Theoretically, Jesus should be really good on the right. He played on the right.
We've got a lot of theoretic players at the moment.
But I've watched him on the right for Arsenal, and he's generally been crap. Okay. So I don't know. I didn't mind that personally. Okay. I almost felt the main thing for me was I didn't quite understand why it wasn't both of them up top.
Yeah.
That was the strange thing to me at that point.
But that's our structure. That's how we play. And you're right. Yeah. That would have been maybe nice to see something different. Do a 4-4-2 or no 4-2-4 or something like that. Newcastle aren't going anywhere. You don't need even. Actually, you didn't even need Jorginho to come on. Just have Rice and Odegaard because Newcastle weren't going anywhere. So maybe do a 4-2-4. The two people out wide and a couple in the middle. Again, I think Sterling must be. If you're not bringing him on last night, when are you going to bring him on? So he's either just never going to play for us, or he was just making up the numbers. So anyway, And then the rest of the game, okay, Saliba had a header at the back post. Maybe should have done better. I like Martinelli's flick and shot, but again, high and wide. And then Jorginho had a shot as well, but nothing. And that's that sort of game over. You know, we've done 54 minutes. We're not doing player ratings, not even doing player of the match or plonk of the match. So it's there wasn't really anything worth mentioning, and I think we've mentioned the one plonker enough too many. So apparently it's only half time. Do we have any chance, any hope for the second leg?
Absolutely zero.
Shall I save my money then?
I mean, to be honest, I was actually half thinking the same thing. And again, if it wasn't the fact it's midweek and I'm going into a new job and I can't really just be turning up and saying I'm going up to Newcastle, by the way, I was half thinking about it myself and going, this is going to drop to zero, isn't it? Yeah. But in all seriousness, of course we got an opportunity, but I think actually, if anything, the fact that it's two-legged is worse for us. I think if you asked us to go up and beat Liverpool 2-0 in a one-off game or in the league, and we needed it for goal difference even, I think we'd be
1989
more than capable of doing it, you know. But in a two-legged tie, going up there, knowing you need two just to take it to extra time, which, to be completely frank, do I even want these lads to play another 35, 40 minutes worth of football on top? On top of the fact as well, it's the second leg in bloody Newcastle. It's the place you've got to go 4 hours to, or even, you know, or flying off and on, whatever. But it's just one of those, it feels like now that we're in this position, it's an absolutely cursed fixture.
Play the kids.
I mean, you're not going to go and humiliate them, are you? But I mean, certainly, you almost just want to say to everyone, look, go out, give it a bit of a kick about, make it clear to Newcastle they've got this one in the bag, and see if they hopefully don't try and club us to death from there. You know,
I don't know.
It is what it is. I don't want to be too negative, but I just don't see us getting anything at St James's. It's too tough a place to go, and when they know exactly how many goals lead they've got, unless they've got a major injury issue across their team, then I just can't see us doing it.
No, I don't know. It could be the greatest semi-final, or one of the greatest semi-finals. Who knows? But I'll leave on this note. So prior to this season, only once has a side in the semi-finals of the League Cup progressed to the final, having lost the first leg by 2+ goals, with Aston Villa doing so against Tranmere Rovers in 1993-94. There we go. I'll leave that one for you to work out what's going to happen in February. Okay, so look, that was good. I didn't mind that too much. I think that was a great conversation and so on. But so we look forward, sort of, with trepidation, to hopefully a much easier game against Man United in the FA Cup on Sunday, 3 p.m. kickoff. Everyone's going to be watching two bald men fight over a comb. So what are you looking forward to and not looking forward to about this game?
I've got a nice seat again, so that's good. What am I looking forward to? I'm in a win. I just will take a win now. To be honest, I think going up against the team that is that inept defensively is something I'd really be looking forward to and salivating most of the time. What I'm not looking forward to is the possibility that they turn up with a bit between their teeth like they did against City. Against Liverpool, I should say. Because if they do, that's bad news bears for us at the moment, because that's precisely the kind of fighting spirit that we've looked a little bit lacking in. So I've actually got quite a bit of trepidation about this that I haven't had for any other United game, I don't think, for the last couple of years. I felt fairly relaxed going into some of them relaxed where I really shouldn't have been, but in this one I'm feeling really quite anxious, which the form book says that I shouldn't, but if I just look at that last performance, worries me.
Well, I sort of concur. In a way, I do and I don't. I mean, I'm looking forward to, again, playing against a team who can't defend, who leave wide open spaces. They're inconsistent. So they beat City 2-1, but then didn't they go and lose? Actually, I've got their results down here. So they beat City 2-1, and then they go and lose at home 3-0 to Bournemouth. And then they go and lose 2-0 away against Wolves. And then they go and lose 2-0 at home against Newcastle. So I'm hoping that they.
I mean, I don't think that's that bad a result, really.
No, but the other two at home, 3-0 to Bournemouth and 2-0 to Wolves. Okay, granted, it's the new manager. Was a new manager in then? It must be. So, and prior to that, they also lost at home 3-2 to Forest, and then prior to that, they lost 2-0 to us. So they're inconsistent. They are still a proper rubbish team. They're worse than us. Who's going to show up for that? I'm not too fearful. This is different to coming up to Liverpool. Even though there's a strong rivalry, the Liverpool one, I think, away at Anfield. And I think maybe it's the fact that they're away. It might benefit them. It's a cup game, so they'll have to come out. There's no replays and things like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if we went to penalties. So I'm looking forward to an easier game, touch wood, and then not looking forward to actually them turning up like they did against those bigger teams. So we'll see. In terms of how we're going to play, who's the lineup. I know Neto. Do you think he'll start? I mean, this is going to be his only game of the season, depending how far we get. So. Do you start Neto? Sterling. Considering we got Spuds midweek. What do you think the team's going to be like?
Are you trying to get us knocked out of this competition so is there football for us to watch or what?
I wouldn't if it wasn't Man United. If we got knocked out, how bothered would I really be? I don't know. I don't know. I need to be honest, so I'll be honest. Now, take or leave it. That may upset a few people. I don't know. There may be people who agree. There may be going, "What? This is a trophy. It's the FA Cup." Yeah,
You've got to try and win the competition.
Of course, we're going to try and win it.
But I think I mean, the first thing is every time anyone ever mentions Neto, they upset me because every time I keep thinking of Pedro Neto, and just for a split second, and then realise, oh no.
It's the goalkeeper.
Yeah, Neto. Yeah, okay.
I know. Should we get the other one in goal? See, that might be a mistake.
But, in all seriousness, I mean, maybe he gets a game. Does it matter? He's not going to be here next season. I don't think this is the position we've had with lone goalkeepers before, where you want to get him some games. He's not going to be here. As for Sterling. Yeah, I mean, you kind of expect if there's a game he's going to play in, this would be the one. It's really hard. We're quite limited. The fact that we're talking about Neto and Sterling sort of sums up how there aren't that many options. There aren't that many interesting choices to be made in this game. Kivior obviously is the other one that is the typical. He might possibly come in for his odd game.
Yeah, I would say so against. Really, I'd say against Gabriel. If you've got those Gabriel and Saliba just playing so much so often, I would play Kivior.
And it's worrying. I mean, I do think we didn't talk about it too much, but I thought they looked a little bit shaky last night, and they've looked a little bit shaky than they have in recent weeks. Yeah. And also, I think Raya looks nervous as a result because I think he's not getting that feedback and that invulnerable force field in front of him. I think that's what makes him look a little bit shaky at the minute too. Yeah. So I've got time for it. I'm just not sure he will. I think he's going to treat this as a proper game.
Okay. Even with Spurs on Wednesday.
Well,
that's the bigger game.
Arteta's thing with top players have to be machines and stuff. And I can't help but feel he's going to say you've got to be up for it. And I suppose maybe with looking at it and going, I mean, Newcastle is still a semi-final, isn't it? So maybe you don't go up there and rest the load, but I would.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't help but say I would because I don't like absolute bloody futility for the League Cup. I'm fine with it for anything else. Champions League, go for it, lads. Do everything. It's the League Cup. Don't exercise futility.
I think there will be a rotation. I think Jesus will start because he didn't start the other match. If Sterling's got any fitness in him, he'll start. Marino will start. Calafiori will start. I think he will have Newcastle's game in mind, what's just gone, and he'll have Spurs in mind. So I think it will be rotated. I think Kivior should come in and stuff like that. So look, again, it's Man United. Come on, they are. They're 13th in the league. Played 20. They've scored 23. They've let in 28. They've got a -5 goal difference. They are 13th in the league. They got more holes than a sieve in that midfield. So we should be able to put out a team to to get out a result. It'll be interesting to see how Man United take it, because they got Southampton at home on the Thursday afterwards, so basically 3 points just by turning up. So I think they'll go strong. I think again. They've got nothing to lose. I think Amorim first. It's always that first manager thing, and it's the FA Cup. They will go big and go strong from the get go. How many players they've got, and who's injured, who's not. I think Lindelof, Shaw, Rashford, and Mount are either injured or inept. Fernandes is a threat. He always is. Diallo can come up with a moment. Other than that, where's their real threat? So
you've got more. United are just one of those teams. There are only really there's been 3 of them that I think of in the same way, where I ignore the form book, I ignore the team sheet, and I just look at the badge and I worry. And it is Brighton, it is Southampton. Maybe not this season, might be the first time I don't have that, but Southampton normally turning up with some striker who hasn't scored in 8 months, knowing he's going to score against us, and it's Manchester United. And they are literally the 3 teams that I just go, I can't help but have inherent panic, because we've played United at their lowest ebb and they've beaten us.
Yeah.
Or they've got their draws.
I think that's more at Old Trafford.
We don't have that great a record.
I think that's at Old Trafford. At the Emirates, I think we don't take them to task. You're right. We don't take them to task when we should. But hey, maybe this is that time. Maybe this is the irony of all ironies. When we're at our shittest, we take them apart. that would be ironic. Look, so we'll see. So what's your prediction then for the game?
I mean, I'm gonna still say 2-0, because I think actually it's been their most common result this season has been a 2-0 loss. So I'm going with a 2-0 win for us.
I think there will be goals. I don't know, mate. I hope. Well, hopefully, there will be goals.
A festival of football is what you're expecting.
Is it going to be? I can see a 3-2. It won't be a festival. It'll be just hitting off. So I can see a 3-2, but I think, how are we going to score 3 goals? How are they going to score 2 goals? but I'm going to say 3-2. You're going 2-0.
Festival of own goals. Is that going to be the way? I think there'll be a couple in the net for us, and Kivior for us. Maybe, I don't know.
It's going to be a calamity of a game. Maybe that's the way to approach this. Just. It's going to be just hilarious. 2 ball men fighting over a game, and just sort of like, let's not take it too seriously. Let's have a bit of fun and just sort of like. But I reckon the crowd will be tense. You're right, it's Man United, but I'm going to just try and enjoy this. It's an FA Cup match, so we'll see. So there we go. And do you know the joke about which 3 teams have swear words in their name in the Football League?
No, go on.
Is it Arsenal, Scunthorpe, and Manchester fucking United? So there we go. So on that cheery note,
shame Scunthorpe aren't in the Football League anymore. You have to revise that joke, mate. Sorry.
It's a joke from when I was at primary school. So there we go. And I didn't understand it back then. Okay, so at least look, it's nice to see that we're ending on a cheery note. Football's meant to be fun. We support this team, come rain or shine. It is what it is. We want the best, but we will support them nonetheless. So let's hope for bigger and better things against United. It just leaves me to say thank you, Jamie, for a great 68 minutes of therapy and catharsis. So thank you.
Up the Gunners.
Up the Gunners indeed. So look, you can follow us on Threads and Blue Sky, even though on Threads apparently since Mark Zuckerberg has said, no, we're not going to monitor anything anymore, do what the fuck you like. Most people are now just disappearing to Blue Sky. So anyway, you can find us at the Grove AFC on both those. And look, next up will be post Man United, Fun Fest, and pre-Spuds Worry Fest. Next Monday, I believe. So all that leaves me to say again is thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
And until the next time, come in, you Gunners.